Ladies and gentlemen, my presentation has elements of reading, writing, and arithmetic, and also spelling. And it's also about when things go wrong. Some of you may recognize this face. It's a man who was a genius, but interestingly, he didn't do very well at school. He was dyslexic. And at school, he was thought to be a bit backward and a bit behind. But later on in life, he showed everybody his genius, and he was renowned around the world. And I guess you all know who he is. Yes, of course, it's Bill Witherington from Wolverhampton, who has an IQ of 160, just like Einstein. And I suppose the moral of my slide, and perhaps my story, is that even if you're seen as being a bit stupid at school, you can still become a genius later on in life. And also, not to take things at face value. Face value? Excuse the pun. Okay, anybody know who this is? I was wondering whether somebody would come up with that. Well done. Actually, it's not Einstein. It's Thomas Hendon. And Thomas Hendon is a student in the USA, and he's a student of economics. And he was given a challenge by his professor to choose an economics paper and to try and replicate the results of that paper. And in doing his homework, something interesting happened. He discovered something which changed the way many, many world leaders were looking at the crisis. He chose a paper that was written by two Harvard professors, Professor Reinhardt and Professor Rogoff. Not only were they Harvard professors, they were also, one was head of the American Economic Association, and the other one was the head of the International Monetary Fund. And they wrote a paper called Growth in Time of Debt, and they argued that austerity is the way to come out of debt, cuts public spending. And Thomas looked at this paper, and he couldn't get the results. He couldn't replicate the results of these heavyweight professors. And by the way, this paper was read by many of the governments around the world, and they followed or argued with this paper that austerity was the right way forward to manage the crisis. But he couldn't get the results, and he went to his professor and he said, look, I can't work this out. I can't get the results that these professors are getting. And his professor said, go back, have another go. The maths isn't that complex. And he went away, and 3 weeks later, he went back to his professor again and said, I still can't get the results. And the professor looked at it, and he couldn't work it out either. And basically what had happened is these heavyweight professors had left out some very fundamental aspects of their spreadsheet. And they got it completely wrong. And as a result, after this was discovered, many leaders of many nations changed their tact in terms of handling the recession. Okay, who remembers this car? This is a Japanese car produced about 30 years ago. And the Japanese wanted to launch this car in a big way, and they had this idea. They liked very much the Ford Mustang that was around at the time. And they had the idea that they wanted to produce a name that was something similar, something that was quite macho and suggested excitement. You've got it. So they all sat around in their offices and came up with a wonderful name. And I thought, right, our executives in the States are about to go to press with this and release all the marketing material. And so they got on the phone. This is before the days of the internet and probably even faxes. They got on the phone and said, yes, we've got the name we want you to use. And what they wanted to say was stallion, and of course, some Japanese people have some trouble with the L, and they said starion. And in reality, that's what happened. That car was produced and manufactured and marketed under the name Starion instead of Stallion. Thank you very much.